Welcome to Lead Line, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire. Welcome. My name is Dr. Elnora Webb, and known to family and many loved ones as Tina. It's great to see you at a remarkable time in the history of this planet, quite frankly. So much going on, and if we don't pay attention, we miss all the beautiful things that are happening every moment across this planet. And part of the reason why Dr. Martin Kwende, and I'm going to ask Jet to make certain that Dr. Martin Kwende is in the studio with us right now. Part of the reason why we have this series that we call the Wealth Equation is because we want to remind you of your capacity to not only dream big, to actualize your dreams. And so, Dr. Kwende, please join us. So today, when we were talking last year, hi, how are you today?
Hi, Dr. Webb. How are you today?
I am well, Dr. Martin, and I am so much better than I was last week, and hopefully next week I'll be even better than I am today. So much
Awesome.
is going on, right?
Yes, yeah.
Last year when we talked about this session, I don't know if it was in October, November, but it was fall. We talked about the power of going from employee to an entrepreneur, and that requires a particular kind of mindset, right?
That is correct. Yes.
So one of the things we did is we described it. We said, correct me if I'm wrong, be taught how to pay the price upfront and in full to become financially free. Know that changing your mindset is key to putting yourself in the right cash flow quadrant. We were talking about this author and multimillionaire who built his business from the ground up with his wife, which we'll reference in a moment. Most of us grew up being trained to be in a room with 95% of the population, clear, with other
Correct.
employees. While being an employee has its value, tremendous value, and both of us have been employees for many years. But by design, being an employee is the least likely to lead one to becoming wealthy, if that's what one chooses to experience. And when we say wealth, Dr. Kwende is going to redefine wealth again. We've done it more than once during this series. So we want you to experience how to shift to the right room designed for wealth creation. So, what do we mean by wealth, Dr. Kwende?
So thank you, Dr. Webb. Let me just start again by welcoming everyone that's on this webcast today. Uh, Obviously, when we talk about wealth, it's really about, five things, right? We call them the five F's. It's about your faith, your family, your finance, your fitness, and your fun. Okay, five F's we call them: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. Unfortunately, most people think about wealth just about what finance, about money, which is critically important. However, there are people that have a lot of money, but they are not they're not healthy, they're not happy, right? So in our world, when we talk about wealth, it's about having balance in those five areas. So obviously everybody wakes up every day and we strive to make some kind of income, right? A job, a business, it doesn't matter. We're all trying to make income. So we can decide to have a job or we own a business, right? And the idea about the cash flow quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki basically says you can be on the left side where you have employees and self-employed. They're basically trading time for money. Or you're on the right side, you're an entrepreneur or a business owner. Right? We're going to talk about entrepreneur today. The point is what? Entrepreneurs make money from what? Other people's time. While employees make money from that 24 hours a day. That's the basic challenge and the basic difference.
Yes, you're on it. And I want to apologize. I floated in and out. My Wi-Fi is not so strong right now. And that may happen throughout this broadcast. So my apologies to everyone. And yet you're still there, Dr. Kwende. So as a joint presentation discussion and welcoming in questions as they come up, just remain steadfast. And
Sure.
so you just define wealth in the very simple, elegant way: faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. And you can't have wealth unless you have all of that from our perspective and the paradigm in which we live.
Right.
And so we value being employed, right? I was an employee for nearly 40 years. Actually, that's not correct. I was employed for 45 years because I have to
Oh,
include my teen years. Oh my goodness.
wow.
And and when I think about the different roles I had as a teenager, whether it was working at a fast food restaurant or whether it was filing paperwork in a municipal district, or whether it was literally helping people go through different transactions, that was as powerful and potent, quite frankly, in significant ways at that age, at that time, as was my experience being a dean of a division, a vice president of a college, a president of a college, an executive vice chancellor. Those all those roles were meaningful and equally powerful for the time that I was in. And I wouldn't trade any of them for anything. And yet, what I know now, if I knew then what I know now, I would have engaged differently. I still may have been an employee, but I certainly would have taken on that entrepreneurial spirit that led my behavior as an employee to build the capacity that I had the capacity to build. Can you talk about that when you think about your transition from being an employee, also a major leader in Silicon Valley, to being an entrepreneur, what that transition looked like and why it was so important?
Yeah. So growing up, my parents told me that education was everything. They said just go to school, get a good education, and then get a great job. Life will be good. So that's exactly what I did. Right. I had a PhD at the age of 25 from England, and I work in medical device space. And then I came to Silicon Valley, and I was happily married with 3 kids. But then I started figuring out that I didn't have enough time to do a lot of other stuff. I didn't have enough resources to really have the life that I wanted, right? So I was eager to become an entrepreneur, but I wasn't really sure what that meant. So I tried a few different things. But at one point, someone defined it to me, that, and let me kind of put it this way: every day you wake up, you're going to go do something, you're going to work on a plan. That's just the way it works. You have a job, you own a business, you're going to work a plan. However, if you are an employee, someone is going to make a plan for you to work for them,
Mhm.
right? So if they have a shop, they show up early, they open the shop, you come in at 8 or 9, and then about 5 you leave, they close like 6, 7. So guess what? They pay you what they want, and they can pay themselves whatever they want, right? And what I was told was that the key difference is what the mindset that you have as an employee is very different to the one that you have as
Mhm.
an entrepreneur. And when I was seeking to become an entrepreneur, I was told that yes, there's a mindset shift, and that there's going to be a price that I have to pay.
Mhm.
So those two things have to happen. You have to pay a price, and your mindset has to shift to go from employee to entrepreneur.
And so when you say you have to pay a price, and I think it's embedded in our statement when we said pay the price up front and in full. Um, what do you mean by that? And I'll share with everyone on what that means for me.
Right. So basically, if you want to become an entrepreneur, then you're gonna have to go through some pain. We talk about the wealth equation. It says wealth equals opportunity plus mental toughness. So to
Mhm.
become an entrepreneur, you have
Restate that so that people could hear that. Wealth
yes, it
equals
says wealth equals opportunity plus mental toughness.
yes.
So your opportunity could be your job, or it could be your business. But guess what? You have to be mentally tough. And the mental toughness part is part of the price that you have to pay.
Mhm.
Right? If you're going to set up a business, you are going to be the one that shows up early. the one that takes the risk, the one that gets the nose, right? It's a whole different way of thinking than just showing up and getting paid. In fact, as an entrepreneur, when you show up, you don't get paid. You only get paid for what you do. But as an employee, just showing up, you can get paid income. Like, hey, you showed up today, didn't do anything, they still pay you, right? But as an entrepreneur, you have to be what? Working all the time. You bring in the money.
Yeah, and something that I've reflected on in recent years, especially in the last few years, is that entrepreneurial spirit for me was there almost day one. So no one told me that I had to get a gig when I was in a foster home. I just knew that if I wanted what I needed, and I didn't even know what I wanted. If I wanted what I needed were shoes. What I needed were certain kinds of foods. I needed to work. So I went out there and I did it. I was enterprising, as I was told. And then fast forward as I'm working for an employer, whether it was Sonoma State University, Stanford University, UC Berkeley, it really didn't matter where I was working. I got up in the morning and I usually was the first person to work and typically the last person to leave, which people didn't understand. And I didn't understand why that was an issue for other people. I just thought, well, I'm excited about doing this work and how can I be more creative and how can I get more results and how can the results actually serve more people in a more profound way? I didn't know. I wasn't thinking entrepreneurship. And yet I was being entrepreneurial. And you're right, I wasn't getting paid more. No one, gave me a plaque. I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on making a difference and having that difference be sustainable if possible, but high quality. And so it couldn't just be on the margins. I couldn't just show up when I was supposed to and leave when I was supposed to. I might have to leave, but when I got home, I did the due diligence. So when I transitioned from working for me in higher education, which I love and I adore and I value, of course, being in 2 PhD programs, that demonstrates my value for education, but more importantly, to continue to learn, to read, to listen to you, to listen to others. So there's inherent value. What I didn't know is that is in it of itself also entrepreneurial. What we need entrepreneurs to do is to constantly learn, to constantly make connections, to take in additional information from prospective clients, from actual clients, from partners, from network communities they're in. So I just want to say to people, you may be just like Dr. Martin. You may be just like me, or you may be qualitatively different. The entrepreneurial spirit tends to be in the essence of that person who strikes out on his or her own or with the team of individuals even better. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Martin?
Absolutely, absolutely. And obviously, in life, not everyone can be an entrepreneur necessarily, right? If you're an entrepreneur, that means well, there are other people that probably work for you. That's the idea, right? So not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur,
Yes.
even
Yes.
though everyone needs to strive to be one if you can, right? So
Yeah.
it's just a numbers game. We say that out of every 10 people, typically 9 of them are employees and they work for the one entrepreneur. That's kind of how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong being an employee, right?
Yes.
It's just the way that life is. And for some people, if they want freedom, then they can choose one or the other. But that's kind of the bottom line, yeah.
And I think the operative word you just gave is freedom. What is freedom? It means different things to different people. And yet, I think the value is being silent enough to listen within oneself to answer that question. What does freedom mean to me? What does faith mean to me? What does family mean to me? What does fitness mean to me? What does finance? What does fun? And I love you just told me we were supposed to have you on last month and you expected to be on, but you were in a country that you took your beautiful family, wife and children to, and didn't realize you wouldn't have internet connection. So we didn't have you, but we had you in spirit.
My apologies.
No. I just want to make that plain to folks. You're a very responsible, professional and human being, and you show up even when you don't have to show up. And so I want to acknowledge your earnest attempts, but couldn't access. And you were in Tanzania. So I asked the question, did you allow yourself to do a little bit of work while you're there? And you were with intention. And that's the power of an entrepreneur. You have intentions, you remain steadfast. You remain steadfast to give that to you, your wife, and your children. That's part of the spirit of an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So because I've been working hard and building a business, then I had the opportunity to choose to take my family on vacation somewhere else during Christmas, right? So I was glad to go to Tanzania. I was actually pretty impressed with what I saw out there, right?
Mm.
The people are very focused, working hard, trying to make a difference. And my kids, obviously, my kids, I'm from Africa, I'm from Cameroon, southern Cameroon, but my kids have never been to Africa before this
Wow,
Christmas.
that is
So
awesome. They have
I
to.
decided that I was going to take them to Africa, but I wanted to give them a first good experience because I
Yes.
think it's very important to make sure that they have a good
Mhm.
experience first. So I went to Tanzania not really knowing exactly what to expect, right? But I was super impressed with what I found out. They got to see Mount Kilimanjaro. We didn't climb, but we just drove past it, right? We got to spend time. They played freely, right? They interacted with other family that came from Europe and from other parts of the
Mm.
US. It was an amazing, amazing time. But
Ah,
the only reason that was possible was because I spent time building a business in a way that even while I was there, I could still do some work if I chose to.
mhm,
And if I didn't choose to, I didn't have to because I
mhm,
was leveraging other people's time that I've been building, right? That's the difference between being an entrepreneur, being an employee. And I didn't have a boss to call back to.
mm.
But the
Mm.
one thing that I do have is business mentors, right? They say if you
Yes.
want to succeed, you have to have a mentor, someone
Mhm,
that has already achieved what you're trying to achieve. And then just let them show you that's it. You get a mentor, you're good. If they've done what you're trying to do and they show it to you, then it's all good. You just have to follow, and then that's it.
It's interesting. You and I take for granted the power and importance of mentors. And yet, not everybody has experienced a mentor, or they've experienced individuals that they thought would be a mentor who, if you will, fell on the job. They weren't up to that opportunity, or the communication wasn't clear in terms of what was expected on by both parties, the mentor and the mentee. Can you describe why your mentorship with Eric Olson, for example, has been so not only effective, but brilliant? What aspect of it that made it so that others can learn from it?
Well, the truth is, obviously, Eric Olsen is someone that I'm very indebted to, right? Because
Mm,
when I first met him, he showed me the platform that I'm a part of right now. And he introduced me to Zagran, who was my day-to-day, coach, right? And there's a difference between a mentor and a coach. Okay. So my coach on a daily basis told me what to do. But my mentor showed me a bigger picture of what is possible.
mm,
And they made sure that I did not jump into certain holes because of what they already achieved. Does that make sense? So
yes.
I had to be able to just listen to my coach. When they called the play, I just made the play, right? Then the mentor kind of made sure that I could see where I was going to. Why? Because they already went there. So I
Yes.
didn't have to imagine necessarily what the outcome needs to be because I have someone that's
Mm,
already been there. I just need to follow,
that's
right?
it.
So when my coach says, "Hey, this is the play," I play the play. The mentor says, "Hey, we have to do X, Y, Z." I just follow because I know they've already done it. They will not lead me anywhere but to the top, and that's
Yeah.
the mindset that I take.
Yes.
Don't forget, Eric is way younger than I am, but it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with age.
It's
It's
not about
just about where
age.
they've been already.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, it's been about um, values. Uh, I'm going to use a phrase that I used years ago, and VIP, values, integrity, and political influence. And the mentors, I called them mentors or they call themselves mentors, but they were there for me. I was there for them. There was this almost like, and is with a couple of individuals, a masterminding kind of effort where we're transparent about the nature of our relationship. unwavering. And if that individual needs me, I'm available. I have some skills, knowledge, talents that that person needs. If I need that person is there for me wholly. And it's not about me only, it's not about that individual only. But the power of it is in understanding that person has talents that I have yet to develop. That person has achieved what I look forward to achieving. And that's what we have beautifully in common, in addition to having a shared set of principles or values that we function with integrity around. And so I just want to remind others there are a lot of folks out there, and they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, colors and perspectives with preferences. And if you can be blind to anything, be blind to those things. Be most clear and most open and transparent about their values and their expertise. If you need something, you want someone who's been there, done it, knows it well, who can guide you. And I love the way you simplified it. You've got someone to do with the day to day, the coaching, the practical. You've got someone else who's the mentor who provides the big picture. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Let's capture some of these wonderful comments being made. Nancy writes, good afternoon. Very excited about today's subject. And we're going to drill down even further, Nancy. So thanks for joining us. And Jane, happy Wednesday. Wow, what a remarkable Wednesday. We can talk about that in terms of the inauguration, right? And so much more. Sheila, thank you so much. She shares, Dr. Kwende, for taking the time to offer your knowledge. Yes. Mary Blossom, oh, what a beautiful name. Faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. Yes. And Olive, yes, so true. You don't get paid for showing up. You need to show up and work. Yes. And when you do it as an entrepreneur like Olive and you and I do, the resources come. There's particular things you need to put in place, which we'll talk about in a second. And Paulos, thank you so much for being here, echoing the five F's. And then 1981, Dorcas. I love it. So you know her, Dr. Kwende. Kareen is here.
Yes.
And Tomoko, we know. How do we know when we are ready to transition to become an entrepreneur? What advice do you have to ensure success without a steady paycheck? Very important question. I think there's diversity of responses. And so I'm going to take an initial perspective and then ask you to jump in, Dr. Martin.
Sure.
Let me just say, sometimes you don't know. You just know what your end is that you're trying to achieve. And so even if you don't know, and you know that your current employment status won't get you to where you want, which is wealth, which is more time with your family, more time to be healthy, more time to literally go across the planet and just have fun. If you know your current employment won't get you there, then ask the question, what is it that I have within my tool house, within my my set of passions that actually may add value to others? And so it would be in demand. I feel a niche. How do I organize that niche and then provide it? And I don't have to leave my job to do it, you may say to yourself. You may slowly take on that new niche and systematically work it, build it. A number of us have done that. Dr. Kwende did that. Tomoko, who's on here, did that. Many people did that. And some people did a clean break, okay, where they stopped what they were doing as an employee and they moved into something else that was powerful. But not everyone has the resources to do that. You have the resources. I say, take the time, do that clean break, give yourself the time to reflect. But more importantly, go for what you have the expertise in and have a passion for, because you're likely to stick with it no matter what. Because a lot of the success is due to continuous engagement, unwavering commitment, persistence, resiliency. And what was that mental toughness that you talked about, Dr. Martin? So that's what I'll say initially. And there's more concrete details we're going to share later.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Tomoko. Tomoko, this is the bottom line. As soon as you know that an employee it's not being an employee is not gonna take you to your goal. That's when you have to shift. Okay, it's not about quitting your job, it's about shifting your mindset. Make sense? So I tell people every time the first thing you have to do is you have to quit your job immediately in your head. You have
Yes.
to start treating your job like your part-time gig and your business as your full-time gig in your head. Once you do that, you're good. Now, about the steady paycheck, no entrepreneur gets a steady paycheck. That's the problem. Everyone that wants to become an entrepreneur and you want a steady paycheck, wrong place you're going. There's no entrepreneur that has a steady paycheck. Okay? Most entrepreneurs' pay is not steady. That's just the truth because of the nature of what they have to do. In fact, that's why most people get stuck as employees because they want a steady paycheck. You do not get a steady paycheck as an employee, as an entrepreneur, sorry. But if you become an employee, then yes, we're going to give you a steady paycheck. By the way, they say that a job is the bribe that they give you to keep you away from your dreams.
Mm.
Do you know anyone that has a job that is totally fulfilled? Very few people are, because someone is controlling your time and your ability to have freedom with your family and to do the things that you have to do. So being an entrepreneur, it's very important. The one main thing that I was going to say is very important is that what every day you wake up, you're going to work a plan.
Yes.
That means you have a job, you're going to go work a plan. The difference between an employee and an entrepreneur is what? The entrepreneur actually has a plan that they work. So if you want to become an entrepreneur, you have to what? Plan your work and then you work the plan. If you don't, you're going to work somebody else's plan. It's just the way the world works.
Yep. On it. And I think it's Kwese. Wonderful conversation here. Thank you. Jane, hey, that's my country. I love it. Yes. Raleigh, great to see you, Raleigh. Good to see you both. Happy Wednesday, Elnora and Dr. Martin. It's a pleasure. Mary Blossom again. What is the P on VIP? Oh, that's political influence. Values, integrity, and political influence. Yes. And so what is political influence? It's having connections with people who have maybe information, resources, other connections that you may need. That's powerful. So as an example, we reference, and we'd love to reference Eric Olson. He's a political influencer. He not only succeeded and amassed, I won't even talk about money, but certainly millions of dollars over a short period of time, and he's not even 40. He's achieved a family, children. He's achieved happiness. They exercise. They're in fit conditions. They have faith, and that faith is unwavering. They built an extraordinary business. It's more than just an entrepreneurial activity. It's literally a business with individuals who have the infrastructure to be successful. So political influence is really looking for individuals, organizations, resources that actually influence the capacity of you to move forward, to leverage, to take advantage of, to complement, to add value to. Okay, and so Sandy, spirit of entrepreneurship, all in. Yes, thank you for the invite today, sir. My lady, I appreciate you for sharing your space. Absolutely. And then Hawa, excuse me. Thank you very much for both of you, doctors, and all the best values you have and are bringing to the world. Listen, you are doing so too by showing up. I have no doubt, based upon that gorgeous smile, that you're adding value. So thank you to you and everyone else who's viewing, those who are here now with us, those who will see this in the future. Together, we make a difference. Individually, we have a little influence, but really together, we make a major impact. So Maria, transition. Yes. Transition mindset first. And so true, Dr. Kwende, transitioning is so important. Sophie, job journey of the broke. That's one way to look at it. And we're not discounting jobs, okay? They're powerful, they're potent, they make so much happen in this economy. And yet we could do the same thing, and we're doing the same thing as entrepreneurs and as business owners. We get to influence and be influenced by those who are in various roles. 90% mindset, 10% skills. Oh, so on point. And then very well said about employee mindset versus entrepreneur mindset. Entrepreneur does not look for a steady paycheck. Entrepreneur looks to make an impact and solve problems for many people. Thank you, Dr. Webb and Dr. Kwende. And we can go on with that. And thank you, Tomoko, and the many of you who are even thinking and not providing notes here, or you're viewing on your television and you can't log in and place your notes. We have so much understanding of an entrepreneur that we take for granted, and we don't want you to take it for granted. We really want you to know that it starts, it is sustained, and it ends whenever we end that process with the right mindset. Anything else you want to say that comes to mind, Dr. Martin?
Well, now I'm glad that a lot more people are paying attention to being entrepreneurs, because this is one of those things that even in my education with an MBA, I would have thought that they would actively teach you how to become an entrepreneur. But what I did notice, quite honestly, was the curriculum, even in MBA schools, is to teach you how to do what, run somebody else's company, how to become an employee.
Correct.
That's the mindset.
Correct.
That's how they teach.
Correct.
Why? Because the people that are teaching the MBA schools are employees. So guess what? They teach you exactly how to become one. Right? That's why having a mentor is so important, because it's someone that has actually done it. Then that's what they're going to show you.
Yeah, and classically, when people think, oh, what am I going to do? How do I make the transition from employee to entrepreneurship? And the key thing is important to know: don't make it too heavy. It doesn't have to be so heavy. Enjoy the process and the journey, and before you know it, you will have built what others might call an empire. You just may call a PlayStation, where you're providing extraordinary service to individuals or to other businesses. And you're doing it in a way where the marketing is just fluid. And the expense very clear. You understand what they are, and you understand how to ensure there's sufficient revenue, and that you understand how to turn a profit. I mean, if you think about those simple, elegant parts of it, and not get caught up in, this is heavy lifting. Yes, it is sustainable when we plan and we are thoughtful and we leverage. If you do the simple thing that Dr. Martin conveyed, or I could convey, or someone else can convey, about having a coach deal with the micro details, having a mentor, looking at the big picture, reminding yourself of the big picture, and having clarity of that vision so you move forward. All of a sudden, you're like 5 years later, you are in a more remarkable place, and much more remarkable than you are now. And you're like, oh my God, this was easy. And other people are like, how did you do that? Well, they're not taking consideration your daily activities 365 days of the year over a 5-year period. I think we're probably ready for some of the other questions that are coming in. I just want to acknowledge, is it Lillian? Powerful mindset is so key. How do I find mentors? So I'm gonna let you take that one first.
That's a very, very deep question, right? Because it's not that easy to find a mentor. It's not that easy to get in touch with someone that's successful. So mentorship actually is earned. Okay, so if you find yourself in an environment and you take action, you do the things that are supposed to be done, you make the commitment that you're supposed to make. If that environment has the right mentors, they're gonna identify you.
Yes.
But you don't go out just looking for a mentor. You go out to do the stuff you're supposed to do. Most people never finish something because they didn't study, right? because we have a mentality where we want to know everything. Guess what? When you start something, you want to know everything first before you get
Of
started.
course.
That's the wrong way to get started. Just start. That's an expression of faith. The Bible says, well, take action, right? First, and then the things are going to happen, right? So in entrepreneurship, it's no different. You start, take some action, and then everything is going to reveal itself to you. So we have to get away from trying to know everything before you start. But in the process of doing stuff, the mentors are going to find you because they're looking for people like you and I. You want to be mentored, but it has to be earned. You can't just go get a mentor. It doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I remember years ago, back in the 80s, I put together a mentor program for students. Just what all they had to do was say they're interested and what career area of interest they had. And I didn't know what I was doing, which is good because I created something with the team of people that far exceeded what I could have imagined. I promised them, without even knowing what that meant, that I would get them someone who would spend time with them over the course of a year. At least once a month, they get to shadow the person. Once a quarter, that person comes to the university, and we all sit down and have a jam session, however we define that. And so they got someone who was in their career field of interest. So they wanted to be a podiatrist, they got a podiatrist. They wanted to be a neuroscientist, a neurosurgeon. Excuse me. I identified a neurosurgeon, and literally, with one exception, out of the 110 or so people who signed up, I got them a mentor, and I had no idea the power of that. And you're so right. It in reality, you have to earn that experience. And these gracious professionals from all across Northern California at the time, from South Bay, San Jose, there was a judge, all the way up to nearly the Oregon border. There was someone who's working on a farm, and business owner, literally had these individuals support these individuals. And what they required is commitment. They required engagement. They required due diligence. Whatever the agreement was, they had to follow through. And that is not minor. And so I know that you have relationships because of what you've done, Dr. Martin. And I am honored to have people say, oh, I've mentored her. I didn't even know they consider themselves my mentor. But, because I was successful in certain areas, they said, oh, that was my mentee. I'm like, really? Sure. That person's a genius. That person's whatever. And that is what happens. It's not by accident. It's because of your own investment. And Olive gave us both a compliment. What did she write? You are both great mentors here for all of us watching. And I honor that. And I'm sure you do too, Dr. Martin.
Absolutely. Thanks.
And both of us are mentoring individuals, and for good reasons. And we expect them to deliver on whatever it is that they have promised to deliver for themselves. It's not about me. It may edify me because I'm so happy for them, but it's really about their success. And if you're interested in further details in terms of what Dr. Kwende does, that I am now doing that complements what he does, we can talk about that at a subsequent in a subsequent session. And so we have someone's sharing the Zoom. True mentorship is earned. Okay, someone's sharing a link. Thank you, Dr. Martin. You are so inspirational. That's from Lori. Beautiful. Commitment and engagement is key. Yes, Cheryl. Thank you, Dr. Martin, for putting the light on the table. Love it. Now, Jet, I know we have a number of questions, so can you bring them up, which will allow us to go deeper? Other than a boss, what's the difference in the role of an employee versus an entrepreneur? So I think we probably answered that, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. We just emphasize it's really about mindset and choosing to lead, choosing to create your plan, choosing to have a vision, choosing to pursue that, and being unwavering in your commitment. and doing the due diligence in terms of organizing, planning, understanding whatever costs you need to uh, uh, assume, and the benefits you need to map those things out in advance. Uh, isn't it safer to stay or to be an employee now? Wow.
Yes. If you want safety, great, then stay an employee. I'm just curious though, what is safe in some other human being telling you exactly what you can or cannot do your entire life? What is safe about you working hard and begging your boss for a 2% pay raise after working for 365 days in a year?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just a matter of perspective. Mm-hmm. So you're right. If you want to be safe, then have a boss. But I want to ask you a question. The last time that you lost your job, the last time that you got fired as an employee, how did that feel? Mm-hmm. That as soon as the company doesn't feel like they need you anymore, they get rid of you. Mm-hmm. How safe is that? Mm-hmm. Right? So you really have to think about it. Mm-hmm. I would rather be in control of what happens to me and to my family if I could. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Does that require that it feels a little unsafe? Yes. But in the long run, I think it's safer to be in control than for someone else to be in control of my life. So it just depends how you see it. If you ask me.
Yeah, let's think about the we don't even know the numbers really. We don't know the numbers across the planet who lost their opportunity to be in a job and what they experienced. On the other hand, building something where there's greater clarity because of the responsibility one has to that commitment. Next question, Jet. I fantasize about being an entrepreneur. How do I get started? I love the fantasy. You started already. You went to that place of imagination. That is one of our highest mental tools, our faculties, or faculties. It's the imagination. So you've imagined. I would take that imagine and now make it a concrete goal, whatever that is. You decide and make it sufficiently clear so that you know where you're going. And then systematically do your homework to determine how best to make this, to actualize this, and then begin to develop a plan with the input of those who've been successful doing that. And if it's something that you know no one who's successful, then go online, read, get books, listen to books, find out that how one moved from where they are now, were at some point, to 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later. There's so many examples of Apple computer. There's so many examples of Hewlett Packard. There's so many examples of Salesforce. There's so many examples of you fill in the gap of businesses that started with an idea, doing something that was simple, that actually morphed to something that was more profound. You get to do that. I say you've already started. What do you say, Dr. Martin?
I agree. The point though is you don't have to fantasize about being an entrepreneur. You have to fantasize about making a difference. That makes sense. Entrepreneurs are people that make a difference. They focus on what making a difference. I want every one of you listening to me right now. Turn around yourself. Look at the screen. Look at this camera. Look at the lighting, whatever. Everything that you see was an idea that somebody had in their head. But there are 3 steps to getting anything done. 3 basic steps. Number 1, you have to think about it. So you just started already. Okay. The question is, what do you want? What difference do you want to make? That's where you have to start. It's not about just being an entrepreneur. It's what difference you want to make. If you know what that is, you have to write something down. That's the second step. And then guess what? You make a plan, then you go work the plan. That's it. Mm-hmm. But you just started. Okay. But don't want to be an entrepreneur, want to be a difference maker. Yeah. That's where you have to start. What idea, what do you want to be remembered for? If we look around later on and we look at stuff, what do we put your name to that you made this difference happen? That's what entrepreneurship is about.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Let's see. I think we shared with Rose's statement, mentorship is earned. Thank you both. Um, and is it Akpara? How do someone deal with procrastinating?
You know
Listen,
what I said before that most people never finish something. Why? Because they
yeah,
didn't start.
yeah,
So your main thing is what? Get started. You don't need to know all the answers.
exactly.
Procrastinating is waiting to get started. Okay?
Yeah,
Just start. Once
yes.
you start, then everything is going to show itself up.
And let me tell you, even if everyone tells you you're a procrastinator and you bought that and you believe it, so what? When you get off, when you stop listening to this, whatever it is that you want to move forward, do that, take that step. It didn't matter what it is. And then take the next step, and then take the next step. Get information, take the next step. Get feedback, take the next step. Just do it. Simple as that. And don't make it a big deal. You don't have to research procrastination or any of that. Just do it. Uh, and Abdallah, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I'm so happy and grateful now that I have listened to Dr. Kwende and Dr. Webb. Oh, it's an honor. Uh, and let's go on to uh, Kwende. Yay! Thank you, Dr. Webb and Dr. Kwende, for this session. Very informative. What keeps you focused as an entrepreneur when you are not making money yet and have bills to pay? Mm. You know, I love beginning with the understanding that clarity that this is all working. Faith, faith. There's nothing more powerful than faith, which I equate as love, unconditional love. That is my definition of faith. When there's no condition on the love that we're giving to ourselves, that we're giving to others, we have complete faith. And we have to work that faith, meaning show up, take action based upon the clarity of that vision, the clarity of that goal, the clarity of the plan, and we improve it along the way, but we keep moving. So for me, it's about what I just conveyed. And I love that question. When you don't have sufficient bills, money to pay the bills, also be creative. There are so many different ways to move forward, slowly, incrementally, and maybe even fast for some. So there are grants. There are many grants no one ever pursues, whether they're governmental or local. There are loans that I know a lot of us don't want to take out loans, but if they're temporary and they're fixed where you can predict them and the interest rate is sufficiently low, it might be worth it. But you've got to look at your plan and say, okay, when do I expect to get resources coming in? Because you don't want to create a challenge on top of a challenge. Ask others who are doing what you want to do and they're doing it successfully to find out how they got over that period of time, because there may be challenges. Literally, I remember a time, and I'll be practical, where I always want my credit score to be over 800. That's a personal thing for me. It doesn't have to be, as long as it's over 720. Most people say that's good. I want it to be over 800. But there was a point where I had to take out money from my credit cards to make things happen because I had insufficient resources. I looked at the deal. I looked at how much time I needed to take those funds out of my credit cards, how much it was going to cost me an interest rate. Too many of too high. Anything over 5% is too high, and most are over 5%, well over 5%. And then I said, okay, it's worth it. Well, within a year, guess what? My credit rating went back up over 800, and I'm in a better space, and I have income coming in. So the question is, do you have faith? And then get the facts that allow you to leverage what resources you may already have or you may be able to secure. You may have a more succinct response, Dr.
Yeah,
Martin.
this is a very important question. Okay, so yes, I totally agree. The faith is key. The thing you have to keep in mind though is that it's almost like think about the concept of planting seed, being a farmer, right? When you put seeds in the ground, I mean, I grew up in Africa, so when we plant, we depend on the rain falling for the seeds to grow. Okay, we don't water them. Okay, so we have to wait for the start of rainy season, sometime in March, and you expect that the rain is going to fall. That's the way it works, right? So that's why you have to have faith. But when you plant the seeds, it takes like 2 weeks, even after the rain, for the seeds to pop out of the ground. So you have to also have faith that what those seeds are going to pop out, right? Now, if you had food to eat and part of the food was part of your seed, guess what? If you choose to plant, you're going to go a little hungry the first year. Why? Because you don't have all your seeds to eat. So if you become an entrepreneur, guess what? You have to run out of money. That's part of the process. You cannot go around that. Just the same like farming. If I give two people the same amount of seed, one of them chooses to eat all the seed, they're going to be full for one season. But then they're going to be hungry the rest of the time. If you choose to split your seed and you plant some, guess what? You're going to be a little hungry right now. But after the first season, because the law of the harvest is always true, if you plant, you're going to harvest. That still requires faith, okay? But when you harvest the exact same thing that you planted, that's exactly what you're going to harvest. But you're going to harvest more of it. That's just the law of harvesting, planting and harvesting. So yes, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to go hungry for a little bit. It's expected. That's part of mental toughness building, by the way. Mm-hmm. So this is what I say. If you want to become free, you have financially free, you have to be broke first. It's just the way it works, okay? So yes, once you understand the process, then you just have to deal with it. If you have adversity, that means what, you're going in the right direction. As an entrepreneur, you're supposed to welcome adversity because it's part of the process. So I expect you that you're going to be broke first. That's the part that a lot of people are afraid of, right? So they don't want to go through that process. You may have to borrow money from someone. You may have to do something you never wanted to do before. You may have to go hungry a little bit. You might have to have your family go without lights for a little bit, okay? But that's the process. There's no way around it, unfortunately.
Cheryl, thank you so much for your insights. Everything you want is outside your comfort zone. Until it's inside your comfort zone. And then as an entrepreneur, you want to create more discomfort because you want to build and build and build. So there will be a level, or should be a level, of discomfort all along the path, with the expectation that you'll actualize whatever that goal is. And then you create another because the vision is so big, right? Especially as it's about adding value to others. How do you defeat the fear of becoming an entrepreneur? I think both of us will have probably comparable responses. Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Well, see, you have to be uncomfortable, right? So the idea of fear should not deter you. That should actually make you feel like you're doing the right thing. Because to become an entrepreneur requires you to do something that you're not comfortable. We just said that. Everything you want out of your life is just out of your comfort zone. So if it scares you, then it's good. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and I'd love to bring up this this book called The Power of Commitment. I think it's by Weldon Long, and he speaks of fear and the significance of it. It's a quick read for those who may enjoy reading how one moved from being on death row to being an entrepreneur to building a multi-million-dollar business. And he said, fear, I mean, it's basically what? F is focus or faith. A is action. E is emotional commitment. And R is responsibility. And that's the essence of what we're talking about today, is having that unwavering focus that really is based on that faith. It's not wavering. Being clear to take action continuously. And that emotional commitment has to be there, because who are we if not emotional beings at our core? That's that subconscious mind that drives our behaviors all day long, every day. every year, and then always being responsible. So, what are some of the key qualities when looking for a good mentor? I think we answered that a bit. Do you want to add more to that, Cheryl? I mean, Dr. Kwende, to answer
Well,
Cheryl.
um, obviously, you want someone that is successful the way you want, right? Someone you look up to. Because if you want to be a medical doctor, you're going to have a medical doctor teach you how to become one, right? So whatever you're looking for, that's who should mentor you. You shouldn't allow someone that doesn't have what you want to be mentoring you, because that's you trying to go where they've been. One cannot take you where they haven't really been. Does that
You
make
got it.
sense? So you have my mentor has a mentor too. Makes sense, because everyone wants to move to a different level. So you have to have someone that is where you want to go, then let them mentor you. However, that means when it comes to the faith, family, finance, those qualities have to be there. But that's what you're looking for.
If you have connections with Dr. Webb, set up an appointment one-on-one. She can help you with the right mentorship. Olive, my honor. Yeah, indeed. Very open to all of you. So just let us know. You will have our email at the end of this. So please let us know. How do you make imagination where it becomes a reality or returns ideals or return ideas to reality? I'm going to answer that initially, and I'm sure Dr. Martin will share his genius. When you imagine, excuse me, I'll personalize it. When I imagine, I've actually experienced the reality. So the reality is already there. I'm not, all I'm working towards is the physical manifestation. As Dr. Martin said earlier, it doesn't matter whether it's camera, this computer, this microphone, this can't, whatever it is, it was imagined initially. And while the imagination might have been slightly different than the actual manifestation, and hopefully the manifestation is actually much better than the initial imagination, it starts there. And once I imagine, I've already gone to that reality. So I have already, because I have faith, I've already experienced it. And I allow myself to not just experience it that one time when I'm committed to that imagining, I experience it daily. I've already imagined what I'm going to experience in the next 5 years. So on a daily basis, I think about it, I reflect, I smile, I feel good, I have chills. I am giving that gift to myself daily. So when it comes to me, I'll be so used to it. It's like, okay, I've got to create something else now. So to me, the imagination is the reality. And then the work to get there, to manifest it, is where the joy, the hardship, the challenge, the opportunity, the fun occurs. Dr. Martin?
Now, I totally agree. When if you want to go to Hawaii and you've never been there, guess what? They show you the picture of the hotel, the beach, and so on, right? Before you leave. So in getting anything happen, they say, well, you have to begin with the end in mind. Okay. So you almost have to be at the end. And that's how I understand that God works. When God wants to make something happen, he already goes to the end, then he comes back from the beginning. That's how he knows everything that's going to happen, because he already went there before. Does that make sense? So if you fly in a plane, the pilot tells you, oh, we're going to have turbulence, because they already kind of know what's going to go on, right? But you have to know where you're going first, and then that's what you work towards, right? It's you imagine something, you write it down, then you take action. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and that's why I always love the metaphors and the analogies all tied up with life itself. You use that example of the seed, the planting of the seed. You have to cultivate that seed, and you don't just do it, when the rain comes. You do it long before the rains comes. You put in the right nutrients in the soil. You make certain that there's no chemicals that will undermine the vitality, the whatever nutrients may come from that seed. And you put in some artificial water. You contrive the situation, and then you cultivate that over time. So when the rain comes, because you don't even know if it's going to come the right season, right? That's why you may starve initially. It may not come, it may come much later. You're constantly paying attention to it. And that's what you do with your imaginings. You honor those imaginings. Once you've decided that's what you're going to pursue, you don't just say you had that experience once, you experience it every single day, ideally. If you need to write it down to remind yourself and put it on, if you have a mirror above your sink when you wash your face and you're brushing your teeth, you look and you smile and you get those feelings, it just sets off your day in a way that is awesome. That's what we recommend. Or something that's comparable that works for you. Wendell, thank you for being here. Thank you for this topic, especially given today's inaugural speeches. The idea of solving problems through entrepreneurship is a gap in our nation's consciousness. Wow. You want to speak to that, Dr. Martin? I mean, it's a statement that really doesn't even require more, but you may want to add some.
No, I think that's very deep, Wendell. Obviously, most challenges are solved through entrepreneurship, and that's why
Yes.
in a country like this, it's very important to create the right environment for entrepreneurs to prosper, right? For people to feel
Yes.
like they can do what they need to do, and that's what fuels this country. That's why a lot of people come from outside of the US to be here, because they have the possibility to work without fear, to actually be able to accomplish what they need to do, right? So
Yes.
yes, to solve problems in a nation like this, you need to help
Yes.
and drive entrepreneurship for sure.
Thank you. I think it's Detra. Thumbs up. And or is it finger up? Basically making it very clear in agreement. And Ivana Williams, oh, hello, Dr. Webb, love you. I love you too. My goodness. And you have planted seeds like Chinese bamboo trees. Oh, I love that metaphor. Those are powerful instruments of building. You don't see harvest for until 5 years or 90 days. 5 years and 90 days. Yes. And then another statement. Thank you, Dr. Kwende. That great answer. Um, Fear, false evidence appearing real. And I used to hear that years ago, Maria, and I agree with you. But sometimes fear is based upon real evidence. Let's be very clear. But the power is not in the fear. The power is in the faith. The power is in the knowledge. The power is in you, not the fear, right? You can have fear and still accomplish a great deal. In fact, some people use fear to incentivize them to be successful. And I think that's what you were conveying, Dr. Martin, that fear is a reflection that you're doing something right. You're not complacent. Okay. And we are at 103. Let me ask you, Dr. Martin, do you have another 20 minutes? Because this topic is so heavy and there's a few other questions. If we don't, we can.
Sure, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Next question, Jet. Thank you so much. Someone told me to be sure to establish or select the best business model. What does that mean?
Well, in essence, there are, in a general sense, three types of business models that you can consider. The first one is what most people call a startup. So you start a brand new idea, you go get money, seed money from somewhere, you start to build a brand new idea, right? That approach can take a very long time. It's highly risky. And most of the time, at least I live in Silicon Valley, San Jose, California, most people don't know this. Only about 5 to 10% of startups actually make it, because usually they run out of money. It's not the idea. They have great ideas, but they run out of money, right? However, if you make it 5, 10%, you'll be super wealthy. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, those are all people that took that route. But Bill Gates, I think Mark Zuckerberg worked for like 8 years without making money. With Facebook, then became a multi-billionaire. Does that make sense? But those things work, but they just take time and they take resources too and expertise. That's one way. The second way is called what? Franchising, right? If you walk around, you have business ideas, franchises that already are established businesses, right? Someone has already tried the model that works. You just plug yourself in, you give them some money to get started, right? You might put $200,000 to buy a Subway, right? But everything is already set up. Then you just use that. So that's why a lot of people like to do franchising, but it's a little bit expensive to get in. The third one is called a platform, okay? Which means you plug into something that connects you at the level where it doesn't really take a lot of resources for you to do, but you have to put in your sweat equity, and you're not really guaranteed any payout in any way, right? But if you do it well, you can leverage other people's resources still and still make it. I used a platform business model, right? It took me a little bit of time, but then what? I've been able to build that up. So those are the three general ways of looking at it. Whatever works for you, you have to kind of just understand it and look them up. But those are the three main ways that I would say you have to look at. Whatever works is just based on, the individual.
Yes. Yes. I won't add to that. Well, I'll make the statement that if you go online, you may read all kinds of different models based upon the writer. And yet I love the elegant way in which Dr. Martin just succinctly conveyed. And the platform model is what I leverage too. And the reason why I leverage it, especially with the same organization, is because literally the kinds of things that I built for my consulting business, I don't have to build with this business. I don't have to have any employees. I have colleagues with whom I work. I don't have to have any inventory. I don't have to have payroll. That's processed differently. It's automated. I don't have to have overhead. And of course, I'm my own lead. I decide when I get up. I decide when I go to bed. I decide what I do in between the time I get up and go to bed. I decide what I think when I go to bed, so I'm prepared for when I wake up. There's no glass ceiling. There's no theft. There's no a lot of things with this platform model. Yet, Dr. Kwende and I will talk about that at a subsequent session. So, yeah, it's all about what works best for you. Jet, are there other questions? Being an entrepreneur means opening a business, right? How does one decide the business to open? I think we've already answered that question. Yeah, I don't know that we want to add more. That hopefully you've heard the beginning of the session. Just follow you. Identify a need that works synergistic with your expertise. If you don't have the expertise, get it, pursue it. It's not that onerous. It may seem like that because you don't know what you don't know, but as you get steeped into whatever that is that you want to do, you'll find, oh my God, this is so simple. It all starts with action. Okay. Next question, Jet. You want to answer that one, Dr. Martin?
Yeah, sure.
I think
What steps must I take to be successful as an entrepreneur? Obviously, every entrepreneur has to start with a little business model, a business plan, because you have to have a plan, right? And that plan typically has four basic elements. Every successful company does the same thing. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. If you notice, I like to keep my responses simple because I hope it can appeal to more people. You can get it and you can take advantage of it. But there are four letters you need to keep in mind when it comes about, being a successful entrepreneur. Four things. Okay. It's called V. It's VSEM. Okay, let me say that again. V for Victor, S for Sam, E for elephant, M for Mary. What do those stand for? The V stands for vision. The first step in starting any business is have a vision. What difference do you want to make? Right? That's where you start. You start with the vision. That's how you think about what difference do I want to make. And in the process, what goals do I want to achieve for myself? Because you have to have a reason why you want to do something, right? There's a self part to it. So there's a goal. I want to make, $1 million a year. That could be a goal, but guess what? I have to do something bigger for other people to make that possible, right? So I say I want to go make a difference. I want to go change the African continent. That's my vision, right? But in the process, I'm going to make a goal. But there's even something more important. Why do I want to do this? Because for me, I want to make sure that my kids have a lifestyle that I didn't have. My wife has a lifestyle that is way better than what she would expect. So I make a commitment that I'm going to do what it takes to make that possible. Does that make sense? So the goal is what I'm going to do for me, and the vision is what I'm going to do for others to attract them to help me. So that's the vision part. The second part says what? Strategy. You have to have a strategy how to make this vision happen. Okay. In this case, I have to recruit thousands of people, get them licensed, train them to make it possible on my business platform. Right? Then the third one, very important, execution. Exactly what actions are you going to take on a day-to-day basis to make that possible? Right? And just on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we think too deep and then we don't take action. On a day-to-day basis, what do I need to do? That's called execution. Very, very important. And the last thing is called what M stands for metrics. What do I need to measure to make sure that I'm making progress? Because you have to be making progress. That's a very basic element of a business plan. Every entrepreneur has to have one of those. So when I say plan your work, that's what I mean. You have to have a little plan. Keep it simple. Vision, strategy, execution plan, and then what? Metrics. Once you have that, then that's your plan. Guess what you get to do? Just work the plan. That's all it takes. You have the plan first, then you work the plan. If you can do that, you're good.
Excellent. Excellent. I am not going to add to that. I love that. Love that. Next question. So this is an instance where someone is fulfilled being an entrepreneur and an employee, yet they have so much to do. Now, we don't know the background in terms of what does that mean? Too much to do at work and too much to do as an entrepreneur? Help.
Well, I think this is an easy one. Okay. At the end of the day, as an individual, you only have 24 hours a day. Right? So the question I'll ask myself is, where does my time give me the most value? Is it in putting time in working somebody else's plan, or working my plan? Right? If I have a job, an employee, guess what? I'm working somebody else's plan. At some point, whether I like it or not, they're going to get rid of you. Sometimes most people think they retire. You don't retire, they fire you from the job. Let me ask you a question. If you think that retiring means you have money, for example, why is Bill Gates not retired yet? Why is Warren Buffett not retired yet? Because it has nothing to do with money. They have tons of money. What is really different is what if you have a job, at some point, they have to get rid of you so they can pass it on to the family. So a job employs what? That means you don't own the stuff you are doing. That's what that means. So this is my basic question. Would you rather spend most of your time putting into something that you don't own, or putting in something that you're going to own for the rest of your life and you can pass it on? It's really that basic. If you get that part, you can make the decision whichever way.
Yeah, I love that. Building a legacy is what I call it. A legacy that is far beyond just oneself, one's family. It's literally having an impact on community, society, the planet. So the question is, to what degree one wants to do that? Yeah. Next question. Is there an ideal number of people to work with when you start a business? Who should I work with? Well, that's very personal. And yet, only you can answer that. I would suggest that to begin with, be clear, and the universe has a way of understanding exactly who we are, what we want. And before you know it, things show up, people show up, and be mindful to be open, because you may be wired to say, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that. When the universe is saying, oh, wait, you do need a technician. You do need someone who can capture video. You do need someone who is an excellent writer. You need an editor. You need whatever. As people show up, that may be the antidote to your business model. So be clear about what it is. That's what we're saying. And then allow the universe to give you what you need. You may know that you've got a great partner, but you don't know if that partner is going to be there for the long haul. So be open to the possibilities. That partner may say, this is not working quite well. I love you as a friend, but this is not working. Or we need to expand and you're not ready to expand. Whatever it is, be open to the dynamics of life itself, giving you what you need to get to that end that you're looking to achieve. You want to add that to
Just a
that?
little bit. And all I may add is this is part of why you do need a mentor, right?
Mhm.
You need a coach. You don't have to guess. They will tell you exactly what you need to do.
Mhm.
These are kinds of questions why you need a mentor and you need a coach. They're just going to tell you, okay, this is what we need to do. And then you don't have to think too much. Just go take some action.
Mhm. You got it. Excellent. Next question. I made the leap from employee to entrepreneur. Congratulations. It's working. Now I want to have a thriving, sustainable business where I can take off whenever I want. Recommendations. I love that.
I guess this is kind of where the business model itself becomes important, right? The structure of your business. If you own a startup, I work in startups, then you have to be there, right? You kind of have to be there to make it happen, right? Entrepreneurs don't leave, they work in the business until it works. Does that make sense? So if you're going to start a brand new company like a startup, then you have to be ready to be there. You have to put skin in the game. So it's very difficult to live in the early stages at that point. Bill Gates built Microsoft, and then guess what? Now he works for his foundation, right? But he had to build it first. Now, if you have a franchise, for example, you buy a McDonald's or Wendy's, guess what? They still make you go through the program. That also means you have to be there to mentor the people all the time, because if you don't, they're going to steal your food. Okay. So you kind of have to be there. If you have a platform, you also have to be there. But that's usually the one that what you can easily leave because of mentorship. You know, even in my business right now, there are some leaders that I have that are growing very fast. Because I have other leaders, I can basically allow my other leaders to mentor them even when they're going faster. Does that make sense? In most business setups, you don't have that flexibility. So you just have to really think about where you are. But the bottom line is, if you ask me in terms of business model, I think the platform one gives you the most flexibility to become free
Mm.
faster.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we know is a significant number of entrepreneurial businesses are businesses with one or two people. So you build your base and you have the right set of human resources in place, you will have greater flexibility. And that's really what I just heard you say, Dr. Martin, in your own way, that if you're a business of one or business of two, it will be a challenge. Doesn't mean it won't happen. It will be a great challenge to sustain the business and just take off at a whim. You want to have the foundation built. And whether it takes you 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, you invest that time and that commitment and those resources that are necessary so that you have the right people in place to lead as you are doing what you need to do outside of the business, whether it's that fund you're talking about, or it is the building a foundation, or it is just literally time away. Yeah. Lori writes, write all the things you imagine on paper, say it aloud every day, and believe. Mhm. Yeah, do what works. If that works for you, I strongly recommend taking it out of your head, putting it someplace private because it's your stuff, and allowing yourself to honor it. Any other questions? And we're almost at that 20-minute mark, and I'm honoring your time, Dr. Martin, as well as everyone else's. I know we can go much longer if necessary, but just want to honor. I think that's the last question. Very good. So, wow, from employee to entrepreneur. Now, I want to honor you, Dr. Martin, because when we were talking about this, you're the one that brought this up initially. And then we had the conversation. And is there anything else you want to say about the power of being an entrepreneur and why this mindset is absolutely essential, that one has that, independent of where they're at.
Absolutely. So, by the way, I want to appreciate you very much, Dr. Webb, for basically making your platform available for us to chat. Hopefully, this is something that more people are going to listen to. Part of the challenge we have is what that we don't get to learn about these things in school, right? We get PhDs, MBAs, whatever, but they don't teach anyone really how to become an entrepreneur. And then we have to depend on you know uh, programs like this to start to get people interested, to even have people ask questions, right? So for me, having worked as an employee for 20 solid years and knowing that that platform could not really give me the kind of lifestyle or freedom that I wanted, to have a mentor help me out to switch from that to an entrepreneur, I just feel an obligation to pay forward,
Mm.
right? So I want to be able to bring every uh, skill that I can, put on the table to help anyone that is willing to change their lives, to change their kids' lives, change the next generation life. That's all that I really want to do. So anything that I can do to bring a difference, that's why I'm excited about being on a call like this, right? Just to give people hope. If I could quit my career that I was doing solid for 20 years at the peak of my career to be an entrepreneur, anyone can do it. And that's just the hope that I want everyone to have. You don't have to be anything special. You just have to make the decision, make the commitment, and then just take some action. Then you put yourself in the right place. You're going to find the right mentors, and then you're going to have the chance to win, and then to start impacting other lives as well. So thank you so much for having me on this platform
Well,
again.
let me tell you, it's an honor. And the reason why I value you is because you're living what you're talking about. You love your family. You're demonstrating the power of your wife, your children. You honor your legacy that you're building with them. You honor the legacy that your parents built through you and your siblings. You're honoring the continent from which you've come. You're honoring the country you reside in. You are a person who honors. You have faith, and that faith is unwielding. I mean, you don't waver in it. You're clear, and you seem to be clearer and clearer every time I talk with you. And that doesn't mean you weren't clear to begin with. You were. You demonstrated that you know how to have fun. You did that recently again. You demonstrate the power of finance and how to build that with folks and through folks to amass millions in support of others, in support of yourself and your family. You understand the power of wealth in its complex and simple, elegant way. And so that's why you're here, because I want more individuals to access what you have to offer. And I want them to access what I have to offer. And the dynamic that comes up out of the two of us, I expect it to be more profound because of the input of our multiple audiences and because of they bring their genius. So I have a tendency of not presenting details as much, and so I want to honor you, Olive. So here's my email address. It's a private one. Contact me right away if you see yourself moving into entrepreneurship state and you want to have the understanding of a platform like the platform that Dr. Kwende and I use. For example, he's much more learned in key areas because he's been doing this longer. It doesn't negate my expertise. I'm just saying that we have different levels of expertise that I'm able to leverage. And I'm so appreciative. And I hope it's the same for Dr. Martin. But more importantly, we know that you have the capacity to exceed even your highest expectation. We know from scientists that learn more and more about our capacity that we're using such a minuscule level of our capacity. And not because we don't want to, because we don't know what we don't know. And yet the power is in doing what you do, listening to learn, sharing what you know, so that more of us understand and reading and doing our own intelligence gathering, whether it's through formal research or otherwise, to better understand and make a contribution. But that's what this is all about. Right, Dr. Kwende?
Yes, Dr. Webb. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant people. Dr. Kwende and I will be back next month. It's the third Wednesdays of the month. And you can go online to leadlivenow.com, leadlivenow.com, and see our series and already, be prepared for the next conversation. In between, do more than you think you can. Choose to be your best. And remember the words of Dr. Martin and my own, you're about more than you can imagine. And just take action, live your dreams, be who you have the capacity to be. We're so proud of you already.